People of Reddit. What's the most disgusting thing you saw someone doing who didn't know you were watching them? My ex-boss used to eat on video calls and then floss her teeth with her hair that was still attached to her head, in full sight of all of us, and then would tuck said hair behind her ear and continue with the meeting. Saw a guy with a glass eye pop it out, put it in his mouth to clean it, then put it back in. I gagged. In class and spent ages scratching all of his dandruff off onto his desk, then pat it neatly into a pile, check around to see that nobody was looking, and chow down on the pile, one pinchful at a time. He also regularly used his nose as a mid-face snack just for interest's sake. The same guy reached out to me years later out of absolutely nowhere asking me on a date. His qualifiers were that he's very tall now and earns lots of money. I politely declined XD. This carnival I saw a girl standing, pissing herself and kissing a guy at the same time. Piss going down her legs and everything on a Sunday afternoon party. Mid-90s, I was shadowing a salesman and we were about to give a big presentation that had the potential to result in a huge contract for our company. While we were in the elevator on the ride up, he farted and immediately realized he had crapped himself. He hit the emergency stop on the elevator, stripped, took off his underwear and wiped with his undershirt, all the while laughing so hard he couldn't control himself and continued crap on his slacks. He wiped the slacks off, put the undies and the t-shirt in the trash can, and acted like nothing had happened. When he reached over and started the elevator again, I pressed the button for the very next floor, walked to another elevator and left the course. I was fired for leaving. Unfortunately for dude, the elevator had an old school closed circuit camera, and the whole thing was caught on video. The buddy who had gotten me the job told me that the next day the boss played the video for everyone. Saw my mom blow her nose into my bath and she swore up and down that she didn't do it and I was making it up and being ridiculous. At a work event, I saw a woman stick her hands down the back of her pants and scratch. Then smelled her hand. I no longer eat any of the homemade desserts she brings in. My mom never closed the door in the bathroom after a while. I once walked by and saw her in a towel cleaning the hair out of her razor with my fucking toothbrush. I got my first paycheck from my first job that day and I immediately went to a store and got a new one. I get home and my old one was sitting in a cup of rubbing alcohol as if that makes it better. I honestly blame myself for reading any of this beyond the first one. I was shopping in a relatively expensive boutique. I used to go there about 5 times a year for clothes for various social events. Basically, they knew me there and I knew everyone. Anyways, I was in the dressing room and heard what sounded like a loud, wet fart from outside the room. There wasn't a door on the changing room, but a long velvet curtain, very heavy. Interested in exposing myself and saw the shop manager, not the person assisting me, who was getting a dress for me to try, pants down, bent over, looking at his butthole in the floor-length mirror. Butthole? A whole shaved butthole in all its gloriousness. He sort of fingered around the hole for a second, picked at something, sniffed his finger, gave another once-over inspection, then pulled up his pants and shuffled off. I got dressed and told the assistant what I had witnessed. She didn't even pretend to act shocked. She just sighed and apologized. I never went back. I used to work with Ren the Gamut body odor, pick his nose and ate it, etc. One day in the lunchroom, he clipped his toenails into a pile, then swept them into his hand and tossed them into his mouth. I just gagged a bit thinking of the crunching sound it made. My brother, Christmas lunch, way too absorbed in his phone. I think he forgot where he was, picked his nose, and ate it. Also my friend who pulled out a tit and began popping nipple pimples, then smelling them. I saw a drunk guy stumble into the street and was hit by a work van traveling at 50 miles per hour. He died. I was for when that happened. My dad turned to me and said, "That's why you look both ways before crossing the street." Last Easter, boyfriend's 80-year-old father, standing at the dessert table at his house after we'd gone over there for a holiday dinner. I watched him pick up the cake knife, a big butter knife type that had been used to cut a big dessert cake, and he just pretty much deep-throated the knife to suck all of the cake frosting off. I must have been the only one watching him doing this with my jaw open. He was very nonchalant and casual about it, not looking sneaky or rushed at all, but as if it were the most natural thing in the world to do. He then very casually just put the cake knife back down on the table next to the cake for the next person to use and walked away. I jumped up, grabbed the cake knife, went behind his back to the kitchen sink, and threw it into the sink. It's not my place to start a family altercation about this in HIS house, but fuck him. That was absolutely disgusting. I am now completely put off by food in their house, especially their homemade not dementia or anything like that. He 100 has all his marbles. I watched a coworker walk to a corner of our building. I could see her through gaps in the shelves, reached into her ass crack, and very obviously scratched her asshole rather aggressively, then pulled her hand out and smelled it. Then went about her day like nothing. No hand washing. No trip to the bathroom to handle whatever the issue was. Just continue on with your day, love. Saw someone reuse a piece of gum they found under a table. I have to add mine since I don't see one like it. While driving in Phoenix, I looked over to see the shirtless driver in the car next to me slowing rubbing his nipples in circles with his fingertips. It's been 6 years and I still think about it. I've seen a few people take a crap out in public, saw the turd drop and all. But they didn't care who saw, so this might not count. Shoot a woodpecker with a .308 hunting rifle on a deer hunting trip. I was walking back towards camp at dusk and stopped when I caught sight of him aiming, thinking he'd sighted a buck. Followed the line of sight just before seeing the woodpecker evaporate into a cloud of feathers. Dude was a fucking redneck asshole that a friend of mine invited. Would shoot spotted fawns and say shit like, if it's brown it's down, LOL. I had long hair and hunted strictly for sustenance. Hate killing, but like knowing where my food comes. Legitimately couldn't understand why it was a problem shooting a woodpecker just to kill. Had words. It got pretty tense. He offered to go to Yard, Florida, idiot for a fistfight and quickly backed down when I started putting my gear down to beat his head in. I hate fighting, but goddamn man. Never could understand people that kill just because. Fuck you, Matt. I gave a homeless guy $1 in his right hand and he immediately jabbed his left hand out at me and it was covered in some sort of clear slime. I recoiled instantly and excused myself from the conversation. Eating boogers and biting toenails. I finally started calling them out and they stopped, in public at least. Digging in her ass. I used to work at a retail tech store. I watched a woman from my service desk walk down the aisle and put her hand down the back of her pants. She rubbed up and down many times, stopped without removing her hand, ran to the bathroom. I can only assume that she was about to shit herself or already had and just realized it. It was absolutely disgusting. I kept hand sanitizer on me for the rest of the day. This was me. I dumped out all the ash and cigarette butts I had in the ashtray of my car. I dumped it out in a parking lot and was witnessed by a father and his young child. The child asks, "What is he doing?" "Daddy, he's littering." You shouldn't do that. I felt like shit and deservedly so. I was 17 and dumb. I quit smoking at 19. The good thing is that this still bugs me almost 20 years later. The guy at Whole Foods who tasted every soup by using the serving ladle, this was like 10 years ago. He tastes every single one. I have never gone back to self-serve our animals. Also went on a cruise and a woman was touching all the buffet food and licking her fingers the whole time, tasting things with her fingers. And her son was also doing the same thing. My brother last pooped, and I went in after him to relieve my own turtle heads. I noticed he forgot to flush. Better yet, there was no toilet paper in the bowl. Conflicted, I asked him, "Why is there no toilet paper in the bowl?" "We don't have a bidet." My brother, "Well, there was no toilet paper to begin with. Me, did you get in the shower to wash off?" My brother, "No. Me, is there poop on your butt?" My brother, "Yes." This man decides to pull his pants up after dropping a load, didn't wipe, didn't wash, pulled his pants up and let the fecal matter remain, then gets on his bed to play Roblox. He just started middle school too. Thanks for watching.